Good morning. We'll start today's class with the concept of functions of banks. It is a recollecting of the previous concepts, what has been done in the previous classes. In the previous classes, we were able to understand what a bank, what is the definition of a bank, what are the features of a bank. And in the later part, we were very clear that bank plays a very important role in the economy. It helps us to control and stabilize our monetary and fiscal policies and help the investors to make a proper investment. And this was the role of a bank. In today's class, we are going to learn about the functions of banks. When we are able to understand what are the functions of the bank, it means to say what activities a bank performs towards its customer. On the basis of understanding of the activities what a bank performs, they are basically classified into two categories, that is the primary functions and the secondary functions. What are primary functions? Primary functions are the basic essential functions which a bank performs because of its existence. Those primary functions are basically divided into four categories. One is receiving of deposits, lending of funds, investment of funds in securities, creation of money. The secondary functions that a bank performs is basically divided into two categories, agency functions and utility functions. We will further understand each type of function, what a bank does in the further discussions. In this discussion, what we are going to do is, what we are going to understand is what is the function of a bank. Basically, a bank has come into existence to perform these functions without which its existence is not in itself. So the primary functions of the bank are acceptance of deposits. We already know that every bank has to perform the activity of accepting, that is receiving of deposits from the public on various types of accounts. Basically, there are different types of accounts, that is a current account, saving bank account, fixed deposit accounts and recurring deposit accounts. Current accounts are those accounts which are maintained by the businessmen. Saving bank accounts are those accounts which have been maintained by the individuals who are salaried employees who earn money on their job. Fixed deposit account is an account which is for a fixed period of time, and the rate of interest on fixed deposit accounts is quite high when compared to saving bank accounts. Saving bank accounts is only with an interest to create with the surplus earners, with the earners to save their surplus earnings. Mobility of earnings is what the bank does by helping the customers to open saving bank accounts. In fixed deposit accounts, it is for a fixed period of time and they have to maintain this for that period of time, and they cannot withdraw it unless and until the maturity of the period. That is the reason where they get a higher rate of interest. Recurring deposit account is an account in which they have to pay a amount which is fixed for certain period of time, and this also has a bit higher rate of interest. So these are the different types of accounts that the bank has given an opportunity for an individual to give as a money which they have earned as a security for their life. So that is the first basic function a bank performs, that is called receiving of deposits or acceptance of deposits. The second major function, what as primarily a bank performs, is lending of funds or advancing of loans. Lending of funds means a commercial bank, major portion of the funds is being utilized for the purpose of giving loans. Loans to whom? The person who is in need for different purposes. When they lend funds to the public, they lend it in different forms. The different forms of loans that has been given to the customers are basically long-term, short-term and medium-term on the basis of the time. On the nature of utility, they can be educational loans, vehicle loan, then establishment of an investment, of an industry, purchase of a property, construction. There are different types of needs to the customers for those needs, there are various loans being given to them. So lending of funds is a major activity a bank performs. The next major function what the bank performs is investment of funds on securities. Investment of funds on securities is also a very important function of a bank, because when they have to make investments, they have to generate funds, and generating of funds is possible only by mobility of the surplus investors who are scattered around. Because of the surplus investors who are scattered around, you have to give them higher rate of interest so that they can make deposits, and with the deposited money you can create credit facilities to the customers and individuals who are in need of it. Another primary function of a bank is to provide easy way of withdrawals and payments. That is, whenever you come to the bank for your money back, the bank has to pay back to you. That is called clearing of the checks. Banks will also perform one other primary function is remittance of funds, financing of foreign trade, that is in the basis of securities, which can be investment in foreign companies, it can also be investment in industries, it can also be investments by government. Thus, whenever we make the investments or remittance of funds, what the bank does is it will basically decide whether whatever the remittance and finance it is doing, it must have a sound banking principles. That is, your investments must be profitable, security, safe, and achieve the social goodness. That is what is the primary function of a bank. In understanding the primary functions, we should be very clear that bank is for the purpose of acceptance of deposit, advancing of loans, creation of credit, clearing of checks, financing foreign trade, remittance of funds. Not only this, it will also perform a very important function of creation of money. What is creation of money? Creation of money means commercial banks are the creators of money as they increase the purchasing power of the community, and they serve as a medium of exchange in the purchase of goods and services and the settlement of debt. The various ways of creating money are advancing of loans, allowing overdrafts, providing of cash credit, discounting bills of exchange, and purchasing of securities. Thus, the existence of banks is on performing the basic functions, and these basic functions are the primary functions of the bank. On understanding the primary functions, we have to understand what are the secondary functions. The secondary functions of a bank are basically divided as said into two categories, and today we were going to understand agency services. What do you mean by agency services? Agency services are those services which are rendered by the commercial banks as an agent of their customers. What an agent is a person who acts on behalf of his customer and takes the decisions on behalf of his customer. So on behalf of the customer, if a commercial bank does any of the activities, we call the bank as performing agency services. What are those agency services? The agency services, what the bank performs is collection and payment of bills and checks. That means on behalf of the customer, the bank will collect the checks which may be crossed, uncrossed, and also the bank overdrafts on behalf of the customers. He also does the same with exchange, that is bills of exchange, promissory notes, collecting of salaries, pensions, rents, and various other things. They don't do it just for the sake of doing it for the customers, but they do it for the purpose of charging certain amount of commission, certain amount of charging of commission or service charges on the basis of the service which the customer wants the bank to perform. So the bank as an agent performs the function of collection and payment of bills and checks. Secondly, as an agent, the banker will also make payments on behalf of the customer. What is this payments on behalf of the customer? As it accepts the pay, as it collects on behalf of the customer, in the same way it also makes payments on behalf of the customer. That is, it pays the bill of exchange, promissory note on behalf of the customer's account with payments on some commission charge for rendering services. So I think I must be very clear in telling, as an agent, it collects the money on behalf of the customer. It also makes payments on behalf of the customer. That means the basic agency service which the bank performs on behalf of the customer is collecting and payment of bills, checks, promissory notes and other things. It also does another very important function, that is purchase and sale of shares and securities on behalf of the customer. Every banker has contract with number of stockholders. Customers generally do not have with them the procedure for buying and selling securities. See, as a customer, I may not be intelligent enough in knowing where I should buy the securities, how I should sell the securities of stock. So now as a banker, it will agree with the customer. It makes a contract on the number of stock brokers, and then it will help the customer to know the procedure of buying, selling securities on stock. Banker undertakes to buy and sell on behalf of the customers. They debit the account on purchase and credit the account on sale proceeds of the customer on some commission charged for rendering services. That means to say, the banker as an agent will help the customer to sell the securities and also to buy the securities, because as a customer may not have the full knowledge or completeness of knowledge of information when to buy and when to sell the security. For the purpose of safety of the customers, the banker will act as an agent and help out him in purchasing and selling of securities in our stock market. It also advises the customer on regarding the stock exchange investments. Bank advises customers also on investments in stock exchange on the basis of the information which it has collected. It will also act on behalf of the customers for other banks. It also performs the other functions relating to the customer, that is remittance of funds on behalf of customer. That means to say, a banker arranges remittance of funds from one place to another on behalf of the customer by means of, I think you would have heard about bank draft, mail transfer, which is more easier and safer and more convenient for the customers. Bank will also perform certain secondary functions which might be relating to merchant banking services. Merchant banking services includes two aspects, that is banking services and consultancy services. Banking services is something which helps the businessman to start his business, to rise, collect his finance. Consulting service is something which provides consultancy to its clients for financial, marketing, managerial and legal markets. That means to say, it not only gives him money, it not only helps him to get money, it not only helps him to utilize money, it also provides him services regarding how a decision can be made in matters relating to finance, market, managerial decisions and legal market. That means merchant banking acts as a financial engineer for a business, and this is a very important banking service where the bank helps its client to not only get a letter of intent, license. For example, if you want to get a letter of intent, a license or a permission to set up an industry, then the bank as a service towards its customer will help him out to get a letter of intent. Give him information, what is the procedure to get a permission for license to start up an industrial project from the government or semi-government bodies. It also helps him by providing information relating to what project can be identified, how much money can be allocated, how economical is your decision, what technical support you need, what financial flexibility is needed, what studies must be made with regard to your project. This cannot be done by one person himself. He wants a support by another person, and that is the bank as an agent will help him out in providing this merchandising support as an engineer to develop him, to start up an industry, to identify his project, to allocate his resources, to find out how economically, technically and feasible his project is. It helps his clients in conducting the market survey. It assesses customers in helping out what is a suitable machine that can be allocated for this technical process to develop your industry. Not only this, he will also help you to find out what are the new markets, how can you underwrite your shares and debentures, how can you provide with your financial assistance to the various financial institutions. So thus, bank will render the merchant banking services as a very important service support towards its customer. Further, when we have to analyze, we have to go with the understanding of the next function that is called as secondary services of bank. In the secondary services of bank, we were able to understand the agency services, and after understanding the agency services, now we have to concentrate on the next aspect of service called general utility services. That means not only acting as an agent on behalf of the customer, he is also going to provide you various other services. What are those various other services that has been given by the banker towards his customer is called general utility services. The general utility services that has been given by the banker towards the customer is acting as a trustee, attorney, administrator. What does it mean to say acting as a trustee, executor and administrator? It clearly means to say that a trust is a person who is entrusted with some property by the settling or an author of the trust for the benefit of another person called the beneficiary. An executor or administrator. Bank collects the amount due to the deceased and pay off the debts of the deceased by dispersing the assets of the deceased among the various creditors on the appointed date. As an executor, the bank winds up the property of the deceased in accordance with his instructions as contained in the will, and as an administrator, the banker distributes the property of the deceased in accordance with the directions laid down in the letter of administration issued by the court. These activities that has been done by the bank on behalf of the customer is what is called as banker working as a trustee, a person who is interested with some property by the author of the trust for the benefit of another person called the beneficiary. On this aspect, he works as an executor and also as an administrator. As an executor, he collects the amount due to the deceased and pay off the debts of the deceased. How does he pay off these debts then? As a trustee, as an executor, he has to sell off or dispose of all the assets of the deceased, and whatever the money he gets for it has to be used to pay off the creditors on the appointed day. So as an executor now, so this is as an administrator, he does it. As an executor, what he does is, he first has to wind up the property of the deceased in accordance with the appointed day. As to the instructions in the will, he has to act as an administrator. The banker should distribute the property of the deceased, and in accordance to the directions laid down in the letter of administration as set by the court. That means he is going to distribute the property as set by the court instructions when he is acting as an executor. As an administrator, he will sell off the deceased property to clear off the creditors and then give the remaining amount to the deceased. So this is what he does for his customer as an executor and an administrator. The next function, what he has to perform here is to provide with safekeeping of the deposit lockers. That you people very well know, there are various locker facilities being given by the banks where you keep your bonds, jewels and very expensive things in a safe manner, where they give you a locker facility and a nominal amount of charges has been collected to keep these amount safely. That is called as one of the services given by the bank for safety of the customer's important documents through lockers. That is called safe deposit lockers. And you also have given traveler's check, you act as referees, letter of credit, underwriting, lease financing, publication, performance guarantee, dealing in foreign exchange. All these aspects what you have been able to discuss in the next class. We will have to understand the banking services relating to agency services and relating to general utility services. In general utility services, we have understood in today's class up to trustees, attorney and administrator, and it will also act as safe deposit lockers by giving safety to the investors, that is the customers' investments, keeping in a safe manner in the bank. And other functions we are going to discuss on a later stage. Thank you. And the questions relating to it will be discussed to you in the next class. But there are various multiple choice questions given to you in your PPT. You can go through it, analyze it and be able to understand more on the services that the bank gives towards its customer. Thank you.